Hello, this is Olive Hickmott. It falls to me to introduce you to the Sleep Summit on Global Sleep Day. There are 9 short items in the summit which are being broadcast every hour on Global Sleep Day. I am delighted to have 5 presenters contributing to this, including 2 doctors. They're available on Facebook and YouTube at the advertised times, and you'll be able to pick up on them later as well. I will also post a sleep log, which is really useful for when you're trying to improve your sleep. The first thing I'd like you to think about is, how do you and your family sleep? With this lovely picture of a cat that, if you look at it for long enough, may even make you feel drowsy. So how do you sleep? How does your partner sleep? How do your children sleep? And what do you want? Sleeping is so often a challenge, and maybe you've tried all the usual things for you and your family. Routine, wind down, bath, story, reading, lights off, lights on, no computers for hours, warm milk, etc. I personally went through some interesting times with sleep, and I thought I'd like to share them with you. Since then, I have been learning from the experts. My forensic approach to doing anything really is to have a look at what makes sense and what's behind the behaviour. If you or your child won't go to sleep or just don't want to go to sleep, why are they doing that? Because there's always some good reason. If your child wakes up in the night, what's causing that? It's vital knowledge for everybody. I should just say I'm not a sleep scientist. I'm not a doctor. I just want to share some useful stuff with you that I found out along the way, and I'm delighted to have 2 doctors joining me for their sessions. And I'd just like to reiterate a quote from Matthew Walker's book: "Sleep is infinitely more complex, profoundly more interesting, and strikingly more related to health issues." And I hope during the course of this day that we can fill in some of the gaps for you. I'd like to start off with one solid, very, very solid piece of advice. Learn to sleep when you're young, and do pass it on to your friends, especially pregnant mums. It can end up as such a big challenge later on. So how useful do you think sleep is? There are a lot of celebrities and famous people who barely sleep, including people like Donald Trump and the late Maggie Thatcher. They pride themselves on only needing 5 hours or less sleep. And how does this affect their performance? Then there's people like Jennifer Aniston and George Clooney who will happily say they wish they could get more sleep. And then there's your boss, who may think that you can work all the hours possible, because he does. And I would like to ask you what you think midnight's for. Midnight used to be the middle of the night, but now it seems to be the last time that you check your emails before you attempt to go to sleep. And I'm spending a third of my life asleep. And so what's going on then? Is it really useful? Matthew Walker's earlier quote just sums it up. There is a lot more going on than you think. How does the quantity and quality change between being children and adults? There's an awful lot of science about this now. How do you know whether you've had a good night's sleep? Today we're going to dig deeper into understanding sleep so that you can learn about how sleep works and how it can be improved. In my experience, what most people want is how to get to sleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling refreshed. So this is what we are going to explore. Why should you be so interested in sleep? How do you feel when you wake up? How do you know whether you've had a good night's sleep? Because you presumably weren't conscious for it. So do you wake up with clarity and joy? Do you wake up with better memory, better insights, and better learnings? Or are you bleary and confused and drift off during the day? Another quote from Matthew Walker was, if he was marketing a product, he might say, "Scientists have discovered a revolutionary new treatment that makes you live longer. It enhances your memory, makes you more attractive. It keeps you slim and lowers food cravings. It protects you from cancer and dementia. It wards off colds and flu. It lowers your risk of heart attacks and stroke, not to mention diabetes and avoiding a car crash. You'll even feel happier, less depressed, and less anxious. Are you interested? There is so much going on when you are asleep. It's really quite remarkable. Lack of sleep can make you more stupid, fat, unhappy, poorer, sicker, as well as prone to diseases. Importantly, sleep gives your heart and vascular system a rest, and so much more. It releases growth hormones, helps a child grow. It boosts muscle mass and repairs cells and tissues, and clears your brain. So have you any idea about the quantity and quality of your sleep? Most people who are short of sleep quality just don't realize it. Good sleep lowers anxiety. It's the emotional first aid. Poor sleep has a major negative effect on your health, and sleep deprivation is dangerous. In the next section with Dr. Michael Cannell, he's going to talk quite a lot about sleep deprivation. I'm going to talk about sleep cycles because this was the thing that I found out when my children were young, which was so important. Your circadian rhythm is your master time clock, and everything in your body is geared up to this time clock. So if your circadian rhythm is out by a few hours, lots of other things are going to be out by a few hours as well. This was what I discovered when my son was 2 years old and hadn't slept well from birth. So your circadian rhythm is approximately a day long, and it's still a day long whether or not you're asleep. So even if you're on an aeroplane, your circadian rhythm is still doing 24 hours, which is what gets disconnected when you have jet lag. Then there is a second thing called adenosine sleep pressure. Adenosine builds up in your brain, measuring the gap from the last sleep. It's like a countdown mechanism or a ticking clock, and it triggers your next sleep. But it does tend to battle with things like caffeine and alcohol. Then there is the phases of sleep, which I found absolutely amazing. You can be awake. When you're awake, you're just collecting information. You rapidly drop through REM sleep and come back up to REM sleep about 90 minutes later. Your eyes move around under your eyelids when you're in REM sleep, and your brain waves are similar to when you're awake, but luckily you don't move your limbs. As you get into deeper sleep, you enter NREM sleep, and NREM sleep has 1, 2, 3, 4 levels. Incidentally, REM sleep stands for rapid eye movement. When you're in really deep sleep, you're in the 4th level of NREM sleep. And what's happening there is you're clearing out stuff from your brain that you don't need, and you're storing the stuff that you do need. It's a bit like pressing the save button on your computer. And this happens all night long, approximately every 90 minutes. And you will notice a couple of things here. Firstly, every time you come up to REM sleep, you're nearly awake. So that's when, if the environment changes around you, then you pop into awake. If it's the same, then you drop back down into lower levels of sleep. You get more NREM sleep at the beginning of the night than you do at the end of the night, which is also significant. And at the end of the night, you get more REM sleep. So to summarize sleep cycles, most adults need between 7 and 9 hours sleep per night. This might seem like a lot of time, but your mind and your body are very busy during that time, so that you can be productive, energetic, and healthy when you wake up. People nearly wake up every 90 minutes approximately. If all is okay, they just go back to sleep and don't remember it. If something's different, they'll wake up fully. Something needs investigating, they may use the bathroom, or if a child, they may often cry. Keep the environment the same, that includes you. So if you're holding them when they go to sleep, are you prepared to still be holding them 90 minutes later? Get them to put themselves to sleep as young as possible. If we struggle to get to sleep, or if sleep is interrupted by snoring or even sleep apnea, it can be particularly hard to get up in the morning, and lack of sleep can severely affect your concentration, your mood, and to do the most basic of activities. So the quality of your sleep. As we said before, there is this balance between moving into NREM sleep and moving into REM sleep. So when you're awake, your brain is in fast, frenetic, and even chaotic brain waves. If you shut your eyes, it'll reduce your brain's activity. In NREM sleep, it starts off as light and then it drops into deeper sleep, and there's like a slow wash that goes through your brain, clearing and saving information. In REM sleep, you're busy reorganizing and connecting new knowledge. Sleep is like emotional first aid. Breathing is also an important element, and this can be measured approximately with a worn gadget such as a Fitbit or iWatch, and Rachel is going to talk about that later on in the afternoon. Just digging a little deeper into NREM sleep, there is level 1 and 2 where you drift into NREM sleep soon after going to sleep, about 5 minutes later. Then the next 10 to 15 minutes later, you're into level 2. Then you're into deeper level 3, and level 4 is the deepest. This is where your rest and recovery is happening. Your breathing, heart rate and body temperature and brain waves reach their lowest levels. Your muscles are extremely relaxed and you are most difficult to arouse, and you'll feel disorientated if you're still in NREM sleep when you wake up. Stage 4 is known as the healing stage, when tissue growth and repair takes place. Important hormones are released to do their jobs and cellular energy is restored. It weeds out and removes unnecessary neural connections. And there is something called G-lymphatic, which is big chunk lymphatic drainage for the brain, deep cleansing with cerebral spinal fluid, washing away amyloid proteins. And Michael Cornell is going to talk to you about that in Sleep and Aging. And memory is interesting during NREM sleep. It moves from memory packets to long-term storage and inward reflection and distillation of memories. It's just like pressing the save button. Your blood pressure and heart rate reduces. Your brain is awake, but your body is asleep. And sleepwalking is typically when you rocket from NREM sleep into being slightly awake, but only halfway awake. Then we have the details of REM sleep. REM sleep is dreaming state, stretched out of real time. So you can believe that you've been in a dream for half an hour, whereas it's only taken a few seconds. It strengthens your neural connections to long-term memory and connects new information in with the information you already know. Try and avoid using an alarm clock and especially the snooze button, because if you lose 25% of your sleep by waking up to an alarm clock, you may have lost 60 to 90% of your REM sleep, because REM sleep is so much richer later on in sleep. And if you lose REM sleep, your brain may stay in a more sleep-like state all morning because the prefrontal cortex is not so active. People can program themselves to wake up at certain times and the sensory blackout is released. Have you ever woken up in the morning and have been able to solve some problem that you've been thinking of? That'll be due to your REM sleep, because your REM sleep has been connecting up new information with autobiographical information that you already know, and you'll have come to a conclusion that solves a particular problem. It is a bizarre leap of associated memory. Your muscles are paralyzed, except for those that control your automatic operations like breathing, and that's achieved by transmission down your spine so that you don't act out your dreams. The brain paralyzes the body so the mind can dream safely, unless it's still in the womb, in which case many mothers will know that a baby can be acting out their dreams regularly. Almost all mammals have REM sleep, and you'll see the family dog twitching when they're asleep. That's because they're in their REM sleep. In the wider world, poor sleep has a detrimental effect on your health, education, medicine, and business. Many jobs like the medical profession, travel, shift workers are dramatically affected by poor quality sleep. And it's become almost normalized to have poor quality sleep, and you don't know that you're sleep deprived. There is some horrendous stories about car crashes and microsleeps. And microsleep is when you doze off during the day just for a few seconds. And of course, if you're driving a car, that can be extremely dangerous. And students cramming, if they're doing all-nighters, they will find that they can remember the information first thing in the morning, possibly, but a day or so later they can't remember any of it. And of course there are chronotypes that Sammy will be talking about later in the day, of people who are naturally larks or naturally night owls. And even aquatic mammals sleep. They have an amazing system that they've measured in dolphins and birds, where they can sleep with half their brain at a time. So the benefits of sleep. You and public health have an enormous amount of benefits from good quality sleep. It's a neurochemical bath, if you like, that mollifies painful memories. It's a virtual reality space where the brain melts past and present knowledge and inspires creativity. It restocks your immune system, protecting you from various illnesses. It maintains a flourishing microbiome in your gut. It improves your mood, makes you happier, enhances your memory. Sleep is basically Mother Nature's skill to prolong a healthy life. And would doctors please start prescribing sleep and good breathing? It's completely free. Everything is enhanced by sleep. It's like a repeat prescription every 24 hours. If you want to make changes, do start keeping a sleep journal. You might put in it things like, what's the routine you're trying to do? When was your last exercise? When was your last eating and drinking? When did you start to wind down? Look past, when did you last look at the phone? Etc., etc. And it's really useful to keep a little diary of it, of key points, because you do tend to forget. So thank you for joining me. Do come back and ask any questions, either on Facebook or on YouTube, or direct to me. And I do hope you can have a good night's sleep. We'll see you again very shortly.